Hi community of awesome, I'm Ava J and this is Bookish Pixie. So an essential part of writing a book is creating a protagonist readers want to read about. If readers don't connect to your protagonist in some way, chances are likely they're going to put the book down. So today I'm going to talk about 3 common protagonist problems so that hopefully you can avoid these errors. First, distant narrative. A distant narrative happens when readers can't connect emotionally and intellectually with your protagonist. There are 2 main components that I find frequently cause distant narratives. The first is filtering. Now, I've done a whole vlog already on how to write without filtering, so I'll link to that below. But the quick rundown is filtering is a form of telling. Phrases like I thought, I remembered, I saw, I smelled, I felt, etc. all fall under the umbrella of filtering. Relatedly, so does the second part, which is telling emotions. When you tell instead of show an emotion, you say something along the lines of she was angry, instead of describing how that anger physically affects your characters. A great resource for avoiding this is The Emotion Thesaurus by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi, which I'll link to below. But basically, if you avoid filtering by showing how your characters experience the world of the book, and you also show their emotions instead of telling their emotions, by showing how those emotions affect them physically and affect their thoughts, you'll be able to create a closer narrative. Second, reactive protagonists. Now, a reactive protagonist is one that never makes any action or decision that affects the plot, and instead is always reacting to what happens to them. Now, don't get me wrong, it's totally okay for your protagonist to react to some things, but eventually they have to make decisions that are going to affect the plot. The problem is a protagonist who never makes decisions that affect the plot doesn't have agency. And a protagonist without agency, well, it's not really one readers want to read about. Third, your protagonist isn't actually the hero. So imagine this. In the very first Harry Potter book, let's pretend Harry goes and meets Voldemort for the very first time face to face, but instead of battling him himself, Dumbledore comes and saves the day. Or imagine this, in the very first Hunger Games, Katniss competes in the Hunger Games, but someone else takes out all her competition for her and she just wins. The problem with these, the protagonist isn't actually the hero. No one wants to read about that guy who sat and watched the hero do everything. Your protagonist has to be the one who goes through the journey and struggles the hardest and faces the antagonist, whatever the antagonist is. And maybe they win and maybe they don't, but they have to be the one fighting. If someone comes in and does all the work for them, it's not a satisfactory ending. So make sure your protagonist is actually the one who the book is about, the one who has the most to lose and who works the hardest to make sure they don't lose whatever is at stake. So that's what I got for today. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and comment, and I'll see you guys next week.